The flames crackled against the damp cave walls, throwing restless shadows that felt almost alive, and in the center of it all a lone police officer knelt tied to a wooden post, her loyal K9 pressed close beside her. Smoke curled through the air like a warning, thick and suffocating, while two furious men circled with burning torches, convinced no one would ever find this hidden place. Fear hung heavy, but somewhere beyond the darkness, unseen eyes were watching, waiting, and calculating the exact moment to act. Before we step deeper into this story, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances. Stories like this remind us that even in the darkest moments, someone might be standing quietly on the side of hope. The officer had been chasing a smuggling lead that morning, unaware it would pull her into a trap laid deep in the hills. She had trusted the wrong signal, followed the wrong path, and by the time she realized the ambush, it was too late. The cave smelled of wet stone and burnt wood, a place that felt abandoned by the world. Her uniform was dusty, her hands bound tight behind her, and tape sealed her mouth. Beside her, her German Shepherd partner trembled but remained alert, eyes scanning every movement with quiet loyalty. The dog had already been hurt protecting her, yet it stayed upright, refusing to show weakness. The men pacing around them were loud and restless, their anger echoing off the cave walls. They thought fear would break her, that isolation would silence her strength. But beneath the fear was something stronger, a stubborn belief that help could still come. She remembered the faces of people she had helped, the families she had protected, and the long nights spent on patrol believing that doing the right thing mattered. Even tied to a post, she held onto that belief like a lifeline. Unbeknownst to the attackers, another figure had arrived at the cave's edge moments earlier. A former Navy SEAL, moving with controlled precision, crouched silently behind fallen rocks. He had been tracking unusual movement in the area with his own working dog, a powerful black K9 trained for search and protection. When he spotted the scene inside, his eyes narrowed, not with panic, but with resolve. He knew rushing in blindly would only make things worse. The attackers were distracted, confident, careless. And that gave him an advantage. The officer's breathing grew heavier as the torchlight came closer. Heat pressed against her face, and the cave felt smaller with every second. Her dog shifted slightly, positioning itself between her and the men as much as the ropes allowed. There was no dramatic speech, no sudden miracle, only the slow buildup of tension that felt unbearable. Outside, a faint rustle of gravel signaled movement, but inside, no one noticed. The SEAL studied every angle, every shadow, every possible risk to the officer and her injured K9. His training told him patience was survival. Time stretched endlessly. The attackers argued among themselves, their focus drifting. One step too far from the others, giving the SEAL a narrow opening. With silent commands, his dog moved like a shadow along the cave wall, unseen and precise. The moment wasn't loud or heroic in the way movies show, it was calculated, almost invisible. One distraction led to another, and suddenly the balance shifted. Confusion replaced certainty, and fear crept into the attackers' voices as they realized they were no longer alone. For the officer, the change was subtle at first. The men's confidence faded. Their movements lost rhythm. A sound echoed from behind them, and for the first time since being captured, she felt the air shift from hopeless to uncertain. Her dog lifted its head slightly, ears twitching, sensing a familiar presence of protection. Even bound and silent, she understood that something had changed beyond her sight. The SEAL moved forward with steady calm, not reckless aggression but controlled urgency. His focus remained on safety, on keeping the officer and her K9 alive above everything else. The attackers, caught off guard, stumbled into their own chaos. The cave that once felt like a prison became a place of turning tides. Ropes were cut, the officer's strength returning slowly as circulation rushed back into her hands. Her dog leaned into her, steadying her as if reminding her that she was never truly alone. Outside the cave, the sky was pale and cold, a sharp contrast to the suffocating darkness inside. Emergency signals were sent, and distant sirens eventually broke the silence of the hills. The officer sat on the ground, exhausted but alive, her K9 resting beside her with quiet pride. Across from them, the SEAL and his dog watched silently, their presence steady and reassuring. There were no grand speeches, only nods of understanding between people who had faced danger and chosen courage anyway. As the adrenaline faded, the officer felt the weight of what had almost happened. She thought about how close she had come to losing everything, not just her life, but the bond she shared with her partner. The cave would remain a scar in her memory, but it also became proof that strangers could step into darkness just to protect someone they didn't even know. The seal didn't stay for recognition. He simply ensured they were safe, then faded back into the quiet world he came from, leaving behind a reminder that heroes often walk away without applause. Days later, the officer returned to duty with a deeper understanding of resilience. Her K9 recovered slowly, each step a symbol of loyalty stronger than fear. News of the rescue spread quietly, not as a sensational story, but as a testament to humanity's ability to show up when it matters most. She carried the memory of that night not as a burden, but as a promise, to keep believing that even in isolation, someone might be watching, ready to help. Before we reach the end, here's a special request: drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what courage means to you personally. Your stories make this community stronger. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like, share, and engage with the video. Your support helps keep powerful stories of hope and bravery alive for others who might need a reminder that darkness never has the final word. The cave eventually returned to silence, but the lesson it held echoed far beyond its walls. Courage isn't always loud, kindness isn't always seen, and sometimes the greatest rescue comes from someone who chooses to stand in the shadows so others can step back into the light.